Well, welcome to Chris and Jen in the morning. I'm still Chris.
And I'm still Jen, and it's still morning somewhere.
I'm still drinking coffee, so that has to count for something, right?
Yes. Well, I don't know. You probably drink coffee the entire day, whereas I've moved to tea. Uh,
You do your one
Typically,
coffee in the morning and then you move to tea.
that's right. I'm rationed on coffee so that I don't lay awake at night and ask my dear husband if things like, do you think dinosaurs were really real at 2 in the morning? He doesn't appreciate over caffeinated
I
Jen.
mean, that sounds like a good episode idea, if I'm being honest. Ace
We'll
and
note
Jen
that
at
down.
2 a.m.
But if you want to talk about that, you'll have to jot it down because I can't read my notes. So,
As we're learning.
uh,
Okay, so you had mentioned the other day that you are rewatching Gilmore Girls, and you said it's like for the third time that you started again. I've never watched it. I don't know much about it. So I guess why are you rewatching something that you have seen so many times?
yeah, I mean, well, I think if you had watched Gilmore Girls, you probably wouldn't be asking me this question. So, I have my Gilmore Girls mug and my Gilmore Girls shirt and my favorite Gilmore Girls blanket. You see the gazebo right
Oh my
here.
gosh. You are
Yes,
truly sporting for Gilmore Girls today.
I am. I'm all ready, but I don't know. There's just something about there are definitely parts of the show, like episodes, where as I'm watching it with Ace, I'm like, oh, I hate this one. This makes me cringe. But it's just this like story with a ton of great witty banter about a mom and a daughter just finding their way through life and navigating their relationship as the daughter goes from high school and through college and becoming kind of her own person. And um it feels like it was just so authentically written
Yeah.
that even if their lives are very different, you can sort of relate to it. It certainly is not one of those like just here for an episode of laughs,
Uh,
although there's a lot of laughing. But it feels like really real, even if your life is very different from their life, it feels really relatable and real. I would say like as a parent, like identifying with those feelings that um, you have as your kid goes through high school and into college, and they're becoming kind of their own person, and you're trying to be the best version of yourself, and you're
yeah.
still growing up and learning how to be an adult too. And there's even though everything doesn't always end well throughout the story, it just feels like kind of a comfortable little world to dive into.
Yeah. It's always nice to have a little escape, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, come on, this idea of Stars Hollow, this town that they live in, which is near Yale University and up in Connecticut, and it's like this idyllic little town where everybody knows everybody. And there's like a little main street, and but the town is like this community of people that, for better or worse, you're kind of all connected and there to support each other. Like it just feels it's certainly very idyllic when you think.
It's nice. So you said there are some episodes where you're like, I don't really like this one. Do you skip those or do you still watch them? Like, do you?
No, I still watch them. I mean, I can't like just.
You're not an episode skipper.
I don't do that with books either. Like I don't
Okay.
just skip past sections of a book that I don't want to read. Like you got to read it all. You got to read every word.
Yeah. I love it.
No pun intended.
I definitely have my feel good show, which I think mine is more of an escape for the comic, for the laugh, for stuff like that. So Will and Grace, the original series, has always been like one of my easy to put in if it's been a rough day. easy watch, uh, funny quips. I do think there's a little bit of it's probably not as like accurate today. Probably hasn't aged well some of the episodes, but still like in that time period it was a groundbreaking TV show that like put the LGBT community in a primetime spot. So
Yeah.
it was definitely groundbreaking at the time, and I still break it out when I need a good laugh.
Love that. I love Will and Grace. I love like they're talking about like sitcoms that maybe haven't necessarily aged well, but that are still really entertaining to watch. You think about like Golden Girls and even Designing Women. Like,
Oh
and
yes.
what's really interesting is we were watching through Designing Women and some of the issues that they decide to take on. Sometimes that one gets a little heavy.
Yeah.
But some of the issues that they decide to take on all these years later, it's like, oh, that's topically appropriate. Oh,
Yeah, for sure.
uh,
Like some of them do like have a lasting impact. Like in some instances, I think they started the conversation in a mainstream way.
yeah. Yeah. I would say like the thing that relates for me about all of these shows, whether it's, Gilmore Girls is much more like a story and not like a, per episode sort of sitcom.
Yeah.
But in all of them, I think there are really strong characters. There are strong female characters, which I relate to, but there are just really strong characters in each of them that are, um, you know, trying to deal with, like grapple with what is right and also like what is right for them. And, um, I think in all of these and how they relate to the world around them, which I think is, like a really interesting thing for me to, um, like watch other characters go through and think about how I can relate to them.
Yeah, I do. I appreciate a show that like gives you a different perspective, but also allows you to like you walk away thinking a little bit more about it. Like whenever like I don't know, for me, like sometimes my mind just wanders as like I'm going through my day, and if I like stop back on like an episode or a movie that I've watched recently, like something that like resonates, like I just find myself in thought about it and thinking from like the different characters' perspectives and trying to put myself in their shoes, even though it's like made up and there's no reality to the characters. But like you think about people in your life who may relate to certain characters and how potentially they would react.
So something else that I have been watching a lot of is K-dramas. I'm a big fan of K-dramas, Korean TV dramas. I like there are some really incredible, beautiful stories, and like it's great cinematography, and it's like it really pulls you in. Like I feel like their writing is fantastic. I unfortunately one of the things I struggle with is like watching a show and having to read subtitles, just because
Yeah.
like reading the subtitles and keeping up with the story and like actually being able to see all of the visual while also reading and processing what it's saying is just it moves too fast
Yeah.
for me, so it doesn't really feel like as enjoyable. So I'm always with the ones that are dubbed, which is not as many of them. I keep trying to talk Ace into doing the different voices and dubbing the all of them for me, but
He's not quite on board with
shocking.
that yet.
He hasn't done that yet. But one of the things though that's so funny, ironically, about the K dramas is like I'm not a big fan of like thriller, like anything that like has a lot of like sort of stress, intensity, like is everybody going to be okay? But there's like this theme that I see in a lot of these K dramas where you read the synopsis and it's like, oh, yeah, it's a happy little office rom-com, and you're like, okay, this sounds really fun. And then it's like this great story that sucks you in, but you're like 4 episodes in, you're totally bought into all the characters in the story, and all of a sudden, like murder. Like somebody's
Murder and
getting
chaos sets
murdered,
in.
somebody's been murdered, and we have to figure out who it's been. And so I keep watching all of these, like, what are for me, like intense shows because I can't not watch them
Right.
once I've started because I'm so drawn in.
You've already committed to the first 4 episodes. You have to see them through.
Right? So it's like you'd think I would learn. But still, like the TV is so good. Like the characters are so good. The music is incredible. So that's my like sort of guilty pleasure. But it's also like spinning the roulette wheel.
Is there like any certain provider programmer that you all go to for your normal like go to for K-dramas? I don't watch any, so I'm not familiar like where one
Yeah.
finds them.
We we started on Netflix, and I actually think the first one that we watched, it was like being like put in the You May Like This. And it was, what was the name of that show? Yeah, it was The Extraordinary Attorney Woo. And it was so good. It was just so good. The character development was great. And then, we were like, okay, well, that was great. Now let's watch another one and then another one. And so I went through all of the ones on Netflix that were dubbed that, didn't overtly involve murder, and a few that did that I actually didn't finish watching because you get through like the first episode and you're like, oh, this is not. There's one called Little Women, and it's like, the synopsis is something really benign, like it's a retelling of the story Little Women or something, and in the first episode you're like somebody is dying and you're just like being murdered, and you're just like, whoa. So I actually just we turned that off and I just read through kind of like an episode synopsis.
Because you had already brought it up, so now you needed to know. So you just read the synopsis.
To bed. Like I needed to not sit there and turn on it and think about it and fixate on it. So I had to figure out how it, like what the deal was, but I didn't want to watch the whole thing. So there have been a couple of those. But there have been just some beautiful stories. I'll have to think about what my favorite ones are and share more with you about that. But definitely a guilty pleasure for me. And then I think there were a few on Hulu, and then Amazon Prime actually has some too.
Oh, yeah.
But it's just a lot of, internet searching and going, what are the best English dubbed K-dramas?
You have specifics that they need to meet. First and foremost, they need to be English dubbed. Second, not too gory
no
or
murder.
anxiety ridden.
Yeah. Well, there was this one that we watched that's called My Hollow Love, and it's about it sounds kind of cheesy, but it's a really interesting story. It was about this girl that like kind of crushes on this character that ends up being like a hologram. But the hologram is, built by the guy that actually like built it. And there's like a whole story around like what's happening. So I won't ruin that. But that definitely involved murder and will they survive sort of a situation.
But did you finish that one, or did you read the episode synopsis?
I did finish it. Yeah.
Okay.
Usually I will finish them unless it becomes like a little too much for me.
Gotcha. And who's responsible for like finding these shows? Are you the one picking? Is it Ace?
Ace usually does curate, the things that I watch, but sometimes it's me. One of the other things we've been watching that actually I heard about from work, is Shrinking. Have you heard of Shrinking? It's on Apple TV. Oh my gosh, it's such a great show. And it's got that guy who was in How I Met Your Mother. Not Barney, but the other one. I can't remember his name. And it's got Harrison Ford in it. Okay. And it's the guy from Ted Lasso that plays oh my gosh, what is wrong with me? Have you seen Ted Lasso?
I have. I love Ted Lasso.
Another great show, by the way. The guy, the soccer player that's older?
Oh, yeah.
What's his name?
Ron? I don't remember. Ron? No, I know who you're talking about, though. He's the one that ends up becoming like a coach.
there's like a song that Roy Kent, Roy Kent,
Yeah.
yes. Um, yes. So it's got the guy that plays Roy Kent, and I think he actually like is, I don't know if he's producer, director, writer, something, but he has some, kind of credit like that for the show. And then they talked him into taking this part. But it was an incredible, his name is Brett Goldstein, and Jason Segel is the other guy in it. But basically, Shrinking is about an office of therapists who, kind of have their own stuff going on in life.
Okay.
And you sort of watch the lives of this office of therapists and then also their interactions with their patients. And what I think is so funny is like they are actually giving advice that like I have been given, or like using terms that I have heard in our discussions. So I'm like, this feels at least like somebody actually like did the work of making it sort of real. But
someone's pulling some real life experience into the dialogue.
Right. Yes. But I love this this concept reminder that like everyone has stuff. Nobody's perfect. Even like your therapists have stuff they have to deal with, and they have to work through their own concepts too.
I've actually heard that that's a specialty, a therapist for therapists.
For therapists, yeah. Can you imagine like having to be a therapist for a therapist who already knows all the things?
I just imagine that there is, I'm a total believer in compartmentalizing, and people may or may not agree with that. I'm
that's what serial killers do. They compartmentalize.
Okay, well, I'm not a serial killer. I mean, I'm not. But I do believe in this idea of like, to move forward, sometimes you have to be able to like put it in its box, set it aside to continue moving forward. Yes. So I can just imagine like being a therapist and seeing so many different people throughout the day who probably like you are probably talking to a lot of different people with a lot of different things going on in their lives, and like, how do you like walk away from that and go into your life and not let that like be on you? Like, I know some days when I've had a tough day, like it's hard to like shake that. And that's not always just due to one person, right? Like it can be a myriad of things that you've encountered in the day that have brought you to where you are. But for a therapist, geez, like that's up to 8 hours of your day.
Yeah, I think it takes, I certainly don't have the personality where I could handle that and be good at that, because I think I struggle enough with like not taking on, all of the other things in the world, let alone like as for my job.
Yeah, for sure.
Helping people through their stuff. So this is kind of a good segue into just self-care in general. Yeah. And, I think therapy is actually a really good, healthy part of self-care. What else are you doing for self-care and taking care of yourself?
Yeah, I actually recently just started therapy again. And I'm happy that I've gone on that journey. But I have found recently Audible, like I have really gotten into listening to books. I commute several days a week. I get motion sickness, so I can't like easily read a book and be moving. And I have found like Audible really allows me the time to like put in my headphones as I'm walking to the train, on the train. I've also, and I do like a mix of like just entertainment books, but then also like professional development books, things like that I can pull into my professional life. And so I would say like last year I really like committed to really diligently listening, and I think I got through like 40 titles or something last year, and I was surprised when I got the synopsis, because but whenever your commute is up to an hour a day, like that's you have some time.
Yeah, that's like over 3 a month. That's
watch me listen.
Watch you listen. Well, you know me. I'm not a big fan of like reading books that are not fictional.
Reading is
Just
important. You believe reading is
no.
important.
I'm a big fan of reading. I'm a big fan of reading. I'm not a big fan of reading whole books that are nonfiction.
Yeah.
It's really hard for me to stay engaged and focused in the book. And so what I found is that if I have a book like that, I actually can't listen to those and drive at the same time. Oh,
Thumbs up.
I can't listen to those and drive at the same time because that's just too much going on. And I just
Yeah.
end up missing, I stop listening so I can think. And then I end up missing whatever was said. And like we said earlier, I'm not the kind of person that like, I need to read or hear every word.
Right.
um,
It's like the
otherwise,
idea of like the person who you're like driving someplace and it's new and you have to like turn the radio down so that
yes,
you can make
exactly.
I am that person. Turning the radio down does not do anything. It does not help the
No,
navigation,
it does
but it
actually.
helps me pay better attention.
You can think better because you're not being distracted by the other inputs.
Yeah.
But if I like miss a part of it, I can't just hop back in and start listening because I'm so distracted by wondering what it was that I missed. So I've learned that that's not a good time for me to be listening to audiobooks, and I unfortunately don't live in a, a city that has like a commuter
You
set
can't
up.
just go
So
hop on a subway and be on your way.
no good public transports. I'm a driving myself, but on my walks in the morning is a great time for me to listen to an audiobook about how to better myself because I'm in motion, so I can stay much more engaged with the content while not, having dialogue about it.
Uh-huh.
And so I will say one of the books I've listened to that was, a little bit like dry of a book to get through, but really good and interesting. I think it's called The Five Pillars of Self-Esteem, maybe.
That's not hard
And
of it.
just kind of talks about like how to, like what goes into self-esteem and how to build self-esteem and what happens when you don't, have the supportive mindset around how to value yourself. And the author actually like had an affair with Ayn Rand. So uh, really
I guess they didn't
interesting.
have to sign an NDA.
They talk about that in the book, and so it's very interesting when you think about it from that perspective. What books have you listened to or read that have been really impactful to you from the six pillars of self-esteem by Nathaniel Brandon or Braden?
I've added it to my list because I definitely want to take a listen.
Totally butchered that. What books have you been listening to or reading?
So I, as a person who identifies as gay, I have never really ever gotten into any romance novels at all. I have several friends who are, and so I stumbled upon a author by the name of Romeo Alexander, and he has like this whole like LGBTQ series. And so that's been kind of my entertainment listening. Um, uh, I would say it is adult supervision required reading. But then from a more professional standpoint, I part of my job is helping like create trainings and stuff for the company I work for, and my learning and development partner and I were talking about this model, and she recommended this book called Triggers by Marshall Goldsmith. And so I had read that, found it very informative, and I think there's like a quote in the book where it talks about how we all think like we're in charge of our environment, like we create the environment, all of the things, but in reality we are victims of is not the right terminology, but like we are victims of our environment,
We're
products
products
of
of
our
our
environment.
environment.
Yes.
Yeah,
So like
yeah.
things can make us act differently, show up differently, have feelings differently. So like one of the things that they talk about is like whenever you're in a meeting and you have your phone or your computer open, like, are you truly like engaged in the conversation? Are you like working on other things, responding to emails, text messages, whatever? So it was very informative. Really, really enjoyed that one. And then,
Wait, before you move on, I want to
yeah,
talk about that a little bit. Ariana Huffington, who wrote Thrive, and of course, like from the Huffington Post, she talks a lot about that and how, like there really isn't multitasking; it's just task switching,
yeah,
and like how exhausting that actually can be on your mental capacity and how it really just drains you. So you're not actually getting more done; you're getting less done because you're less effective when you're task
yeah.
switching.
And then, like, how are you showing up for others in those instances? Like, because you're draining yourself, right? Like, you're switching these tasks that is draining, and then you are also having to physically show up for people. And so, by the end of the day, you feel like you've ran a marathon and have really accomplished nothing. Like when you look back on the day, you're like, what did
Yeah.
I do?
But like it's really not corporate culture acceptable to say that you're not a multitasker. Like how
Well,
many jobs in the requirements section say like good multitasker? Like a lot of them actually,
absolutely.
which is so interesting that these thoughts and concepts being put out are not necessarily new. That multitasking is really not actually multitasking, and yet it's definitely like kind of, I feel like anyways, sort of taboo to say, well, you know what, I'm actually not a multitasker. I need to, I can do many things, but I need to focus on them
Right.
sort of one at a time so that they get my full attention.
Yeah. So another book I was reading, The 5 a.m. Club, Own Your Morning, Elevate Your Life, it talks about that very thing, like how um when you think of the greats, the Michelangelos, the Picassos, like they spent their life focusing on their art. Like
Yeah.
that was their time and energy. It wasn't like art and family, and he does admit like in there is like this idea that the greats are kind of like loners and like outcasts a little bit because they don't fit in with culture. But then their point is like, if you're wanting to do something great, then can you truly be ingrained? Like, are you supposed to go with the flow, or to be independent and different? Do you stand out because you
I
are a
don't
little
know.
different?
That's so interesting. Like I certainly believe in like embracing how we're different instead of sort of back to this topic of one of my core beliefs that normal is a farce, and it's sort of just what people think everybody else is experiencing, but really people are all across the spectrum. But this concept of like you have to choose if you want to be great at something, you have to choose. I'm a big like I like and not or. I say that all the
Yeah,
time. So like as we were rebuilding our house and being told, hey, we have to make choices, and my feedback was always, well, how do we get to and? Because I don't want to talk about or. I want to talk about and. I want them both. I want to have my cake, and I also want to eat my cake. So like how do I get to and?
how do we achieve that? Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, I think a lot of it is also what you are wanting out of life. Like, what are you looking to achieve? Um, because in some instances, like you have to be involved in the culture and the community, like to do something great or wonderful. But in other instances, like I mean, just to like make this super simple, like when you're in school and all of your friends are talking about like the music that they're listening to, I know I felt the pressure of, oh, I need to know who these bands are. I need to know who like their music, things like that. Now I'm like, if I don't, I'll listen, but if I don't like it, I'm not going to force myself to continue to listen to it so I can talk to people about it.
Yeah, I don't know if I can relate to that. I don't know that I've ever I don't know that I have the discipline to stick with something that really is not interesting to me.
Yeah.
To find more about. I actually wish I had a little more of that discipline, but
But I think you
you know,
do have the ability to engage with others and like find things that you can connect with people on. Like
absolutely.
I don't think it has to be I'm a true believer like you have the people you work with, you have your close friends, you have acquaintances, like and not everybody has to be your best friend. Not everybody has to know everything about you. And I think in those instances, like you look to make connections with certain people in certain ways. Like you and I, like whenever I
Yeah.
read something good or I hear something that I like and think that you may like I'm not going to go see a horror movie and be like, oh, Jen, you got to go see this because I know
Where I
you
am
would
not going to
not.
go see that. I had to take a break in the middle of Die Hard because it was just a little too intense for me.
The original Die Hard.
Yeah, yeah.
You're like, I need an intermission. Can we please pause?
The boys decided I needed to be educated, and they attempted to educate me. And it was, years ago before they realized how triggered I was by that. So
I
yeah,
mean,
I had
I
to
learned that about
take a
you.
pass.
We tried to watch Young Frankenstein,
Oh
and
my
you were like,
gosh.
we can't. I no, we got to watch something else."
Can't do it. I mean, I gotta say, I definitely was not like in a great place for that either. It was the night before I was getting ready to fly to another country, India, all by myself, with for the first time with nobody else, and we had just we're going through the whole house fire situation, and so I was in a place where I was probably in just constant over adrenaline mode and not knowing how to identify that for myself. It was before I realized that I actually have anxiety, like legitimately,
Yeah,
and not just an anxious person, but like I actually have anxiety, and I was very triggered, and so I was definitely not in a place where I think about that a lot, like could I watch that now and probably be fine? Probably. I just was definitely not in a headspace where that was going
yeah.
to be okay for me.
But I mean, I'm glad like you even spoke up for yourself then. Like even you, I mean, knowing now that you have anxiety, like even back then you were able to stop yourself and you like, hey, this isn't good for me. Can like let's watch something else. Let's do something else. You didn't just like struggle through.
Struggle through it, yeah. Which I think is a testament to how safe I feel in our relationship, in our
Yeah.
friendship, which I think is really important. I think that's an important part of self-care is like you know, understanding who are those people that are gonna, love you no matter what, and then allowing yourself to be real with them so that you
Yeah.
can kind of unzip some of what you feel might be your crazy, at least for me, and going, you know what? Like, I know that they see me for my whole person, and they're not gonna just be like, oh my God, I had no idea she
Right.
was like that crazy. Uh, which that for me that is something that I have found later in life. I wish that I would have understood that earlier in life, but I'm really glad that like that's something that I have started to realize. Kind of that concept of like there are a small circle of people that really you can be your whole true self with and not have to
Yeah.
worry, um, which is great. You know.
Yeah. I mean, your inner circle, I think it's really important. And I know like they're the people that you can go to and you can say the things that you you trust. Like you can be yourself. You don't have to like have the guard up, the filter on, things like that. And I think having those people as everyday people in your life are important, but also like having I mean, you and I don't talk every day, but we definitely are just like a text message away. Like I
Yeah.
feel when you have those people in your life, it doesn't have to be an everyday connection. It's just knowing that you have those people goes
You
a
have
long
those
ways.
people. Yeah. And I think understanding that not everybody are those people. Like
Yeah.
you shouldn't count on everyone that having that kind of relationship with, not because of who those people are, just, um that kind of relationship I think is reserved for, kind of your inner circle
Yeah.
when you think about it. Um so what else do you do for healthcare?
For
Healthcare.
healthcare,
So what else do you do for self-care?
So whenever I can, I enjoy going out and walking. Like that's kind of one of my things I'm focusing on is doing more walking this year. I am not a runner, never have been. I think I would love to achieve that at some point, but my body is just like, we don't think we're a runner. Um,
I think that's okay. I think
yeah,
that's okay to not love
listen
running,
to your
by the way.
body. Listen to your body. I think honestly, my problem with running is I don't know how to run and breathe. Like I know how probably how like silly that sounds, but when I was like going to the gym and like on the treadmill, it just hit me one day. I'm like, I'm not breathing. Why aren't I breathing? And then like I'm in my head and I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm going too fast. Like, and I
I
don't want
think
to be
it's
the person that like flies across the gym off of the
the
treadmill.
treadmill. I mean, I would love to see those outtakes, but for your safety, I'd rather it not be you.
Get a stunt double.
Yeah, I think it's okay to not love running, by the way. I really do.
Yeah. What else do I do? I really enjoy, I have like a small group of friends here in the city that we hang out, go do things, watch movies, do dinners. Um, I will say I've gotten better at like creating boundaries and understanding, like when I need to step away from things to make sure that I am okay. So like taking a break from social media, taking a break from like watching or listening to news, like like I have
Kind of just
come to the place.
self-awareness,
Yeah,
like
exactly.
listening to your inner self a little more. Yeah, I think that's really good. I think one of the things that I really like are affirmations. And I know like some people think it's kind of hokey. In fact, when I go on my walk in the morning, oftentimes I'll have my one of my favorite affirmation lists in, and I'll repeat out loud, because there's something like tactile about actually saying it out loud
Yep.
versus just listening to it, that helps you kind of um, really sort of ingest it, I guess.
Yeah.
But there, and sometimes when I'm listening to somebody else's list of meditations and repeating them, there are some that don't feel quite right for me, so I'll change them a little bit.
Yeah.
So giving myself the freedom to really like interpret that. But oftentimes it's like, well, I really want that to be true for myself. I just don't feel that. And it's sort of like continuing to say it until it sort of sinks in, right? So I'm sure all my neighbors think I'm crazy.
Just walking through the neighborhood,
Just saying things
chanting.
like I have value, I deserve to be happy, things like
Or
that.
maybe
But
they see you and they're like, oh my gosh, I need to find out what she's doing because I
yeah.
need that in my life.
Yeah, but I figure that if other people can say things that sort of get stuck in your head
Uh-huh.
and become like that inner voice that maybe aren't so good, then I certainly can say things to myself that get stuck in my head that can become that inner voice that is better. So I'm a big believer in affirmations, and you kind of have to fake it until you make it. But
Yeah.
I would say that when I am being studious about actually like doing them, I notice that I am in a calmer headspace. Not that it manages my anxiety for me or anything like that, right? But I just start the day as a version of myself that I am more proud of than
Yeah.
when I am not kind of doing those things for myself. So I think that's something that I used to feel really guilty for, not because anyone made me feel guilty, just because I was making myself feel guilty for taking the time for myself to do those things.
Uh,
And now what I'm realizing is I shouldn't feel guilty about doing it. I should actually like feel accountable to doing it, because I do show up and interact with the world in a way that is more kind and gentle and productive and uplifting than when I don't do those things.
yeah, it allows you to show up as a better person, a better version of you. Like when you take that time to care for yourself and have that create that space for yourself, I think that it truly does allow you to take a breath and kind of just recenter or redirect whatever you want to call it. So that way when you go into interactions, you're in a good place.
Yeah, like being kind to yourself. that's a piece of advice that I've been given by many people over the years, usually my boss. And I'm like, that doesn't really, I don't understand what it is that I'm supposed to do differently than I'm doing today to apply
Yeah.
that. It's like intellectually, maybe I grasp the concept, but I don't really grasp the concept. But I think for me, what I've really been leaning into that I think relates to being kind to yourself is just like accountability without judgment. So you have to hold yourself accountable to continue being the person that you want to be, but without judging yourself for where you're at. You
Yeah.
sort of embrace yourself, accept yourself as you are, and then like sort of pragmatically decide what is it that I want to change, and give yourself the room and the patience and the grace to go on that journey while holding yourself accountable, because change, does take effort.
Correct.
Um, without like that kind of inner thought of, well, if I don't make it to that point, then I'm not good enough. Which I think culturally is just something we struggle with a lot here as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think people feel like whenever they give you feedback or they share something with you, that all of a sudden the next time we have an encounter, like you're supposed to have it perfected. You're supposed to
Oh
be
yeah, you fixed
like,
that, right? Like,
right, you fixed
that's
it.
something about yourself you're supposed to fix.
Right. And one, nothing is really ever that easy unless like you're changing a shirt or something. Like otherwise it's a journey. Like it's something like you have to be aware of it. You have to understand like why you show up that way. And I think that's where when you have those close friends that you can share those things with, they can help you on that journey, and support you and be able to say the things to you that you wouldn't want a coworker or a boss saying to you.
Yeah.
Like, and I think, we're not, we're a culture of like instant gratification. Like,
Oh, for sure. I mean, culture or not, I think that that's something that's like a part of me too. I'm super impatient, and I know that, and I want instant gratification. And it's like I really wanted to learn how to play the guitar, but I didn't actually really want to learn how to play the guitar. What I wanted was to be able to play the guitar without having to learn how to play the guitar. And so,
you just wanted to pick it up and be great at it.
yeah. And like, I actually don't think that I have the skill set that makes me naturally, good at that. Because you have to think about like multiple rhythms and multiple things happening, and your hands are sort of independently doing different things at the same time. And I'm
Yeah.
just not built for that. And then also like reading music at the same time. Like I can sight read for singing, but not actually translate that into notes, and then translate the notes into how I hold my hands and what I'm supposed to be playing. Like that's just, my brain does not work that way.
But look, you have strengths in other places.
Yeah. So I like tried it for a minute, and then I was like, yeah, I can't do this. And so now I have this beautiful guitar that I probably will never know how to play, because I just don't have the patience to learn.
Well, it turns into a statement piece, and then you have a conversation around it at a dinner
Yeah.
party.
Yeah. My older sister plays the guitar, and she has played it when she has come over. So it does get love
So see,
every
there
now
you
and
go.
again. Maybe one day I will create the patience to learn a little, but I think that I have accepted that I'm not going to go be like some great guitar player in life,
And that's okay.
and that's okay.
The world needs you in other places, Jen.
There certainly is enough to go around. Right?
So, you had said you were talking about how you do your affirmations in the morning, that you feel it helps get you into a space of like best self. When as you're like going through your day and you encounter like a stressful situation or something that you're just like, oh, do you find yourself like saying your affirmations or like have them written so that like it's within view, or like how do they help you throughout the day?
I actually have I have one that sits on my desk at home. that sits down kind of below my monitors, and it's just there all the time, and it just says, "You are enough." And I think that is like the affirmation that I know I need the most. Just as a reminder, because I'm constantly just feeling like I'm not enough, and I need to be more of something, or less of something, to be more valued or more acceptable. And so what I find is like that visual reminder. It's like an alternative statement to the things that are popping up in my head. And so when I am more diligent about doing my affirmations regularly, I find that I am able to more quickly sort of counterbalance those thoughts that come in, that are not as productive or healthy. But it's not like, I am, I tend to have that mentality of, okay, how many classes do I have to take before I've achieved this? And like, we can check it off the list. And this is like one of those
When
things
do I get
where,
to graduate?
yeah, it's kind of like a lifelong thing that you just have to do. It's not like something that you achieve and you check the box and then you're good to go for forever. It's something you have to keep doing and practicing ongoing. And like a muscle, you have to just keep building. And when you've built the muscle, then when you need it, it's there for you. And if you've been ignoring it and you used to build those muscles, I used to play soccer. And so I used to have the muscles for that. And it's been a long time since I have played soccer. And so, I don't have those muscles anymore. Right. So you have to keep exercising it in order for it to be there for you when you need it. And I do find that that's what I mean by when I find myself practicing those things, I feel like I show up as a better version of I shouldn't say a better version, but I guess I feel more prepared to deal with the things that happen around me in a way that I feel better about, because I have given myself sort of the mental presence and the tools to be more thoughtful about how I'm showing up instead of letting, kind of those external factors hijack my emotions and my thoughts.
Yeah. I mean, I really liked how you said you use them to counterbalance, because I think that's the key is like, it doesn't make those things go away, right? Like it just helps you. It's like having that dialogue in your head. You have again, something that I paid to be told, which seems obvious, but like, if you're going to assume if you're going to assume worst case scenario, then also take the path of best case scenario, because really the truth, it's likely going to end up somewhere in the middle.
Somewhere in the middle. Yeah.
And I think to me, that is where I have personally, like when I find myself going down like this, worst case scenario situations, and it's very easy to spiral. Like that's where I find my balance is like, okay, we've just spent like the last hour catastrophizing this scenario. Let's go the other direction and like help find that balance to at least get me in a better place where then I feel like I can make movement that maybe is hopeful.
Yeah. I mean, and I think, I aspire to be the kind of person that can more often than not kind of take control of my mental space in that way. But I'm also, aware that sometimes I'm not able to do that for myself. And so knowing that I have like a network of people that can help me and, that really close, tight circle of people that I can call and say, okay, like, I know that I'm probably not in the best mental space about this, but I'm not getting there myself.
I am acknowledging that I am not at the place I need to be.
Like,
so
without
go
judgment.
On this journey with me, please.
Without judgment, can you talk me through this? Because I can't get there on my own. And I think that's a form of self-care, right? Learning when you need, when you can't do it for yourself and you need somebody else to go on that journey with you, and being vulnerable enough, with just that tight circle to kind of let them help you. which I think for me also has been, a journey of struggle. Like, it's really hard for me to accept help from others. Not because I am, so egotistical that I don't need help. I just don't want to be a burden on anyone else ever.
Yeah.
And so it's really uncomfortable, this like art of accepting help. And that's something I'm working on in my own like kind of personal struggle is how do I allow myself to be able to accept help from others? Not because I think I can do everything on my own, but because I don't want to be a burden to anybody
Yeah.
else.
You're never a burden. I promise. That's why we can text each other at all times.
That's right. That's right. And you are, you often have such good guidance and advice and also know when to tell me, like, I recall, once years ago, I think
Oh, dear.
we may have still been working together at this point. But it was the end of the day and there was some work situation. I can't remember what it was, but I was just like, really stressed out about it. And I was totally an amygdala hijack. Like, I was not going to get out of it on my own. And I called you and I was just like, Chris, and you were like, okay, the first thing I need you to do is walk over to your bar, pour a shot of whiskey and drink it.
Yeah, that probably isn't like the best advice to offer people in those situations, but
Friday, end of the day, work was done. And I think like for me, it was a great, like, okay, all right, let's break the cycle here and just, sort of step aside and, not that alcohol is the answer to anxiety. That is never, okay. Which was not the point of your comment. It was
right.
more like, Jen, you got to transition into the
Right.
weekend. You gotta
Get up,
let
move.
this one go.
Right.
Let this one go. And in that moment, that's what I needed. I didn't need like a philosophical conversation about how everything was going to be okay. I just needed all right, you just gotta suck it up and get over this one.
Shake it off.
It's going to be fine. And you got to put it aside when you come back to it later, when you're in a different headspace and all of the brain chemicals have settled down. You're going to be okay.
Well, and there's a lot of science that goes to that. Like whenever we are in that space where, I think you called it amygdala hijack, we aren't able to process beyond that, like fight or flight. Like it is, you have to let those chemicals leave your body so that you can then go at it with, a problem-solving, solutions-oriented type mindset. And again, I think we just are in a place where we want to move, get stuff done. And sometimes we forget, like, ooh, I may not be in the best place to create a plan right now.
Yeah. But, I think that's one of the things that I have really been trying to learn more and more is how do I sit with something so that I can resolve it later when I can get better perspective on it without like it just dominating everything, all of my thoughts, like that tendency that I have to fixate and that kind of anxiety that comes in and just like circles and spirals. Learning how to be able to sit with something that's really uncomfortable and set it aside, and kind of what you started talking about in the beginning. How do you compartmentalize and put it aside and stop thinking about it? And I think sometimes like that's where you just say, I need a distraction. But I also think, kind of back to the affirmations, it's like if I am stressed or anxious about something that's going on because I think that it's like targeting my value as a person or who I am, it's much harder to kind of let go of, to deal with later than if I can put it into the right perspective.
Yeah.
And so if I am doing the work to say, like, I am enough, I am good enough, no matter what happens, I'm going to, of course, make mistakes just like everybody does, but it doesn't mean that I'm like, worthless as a human.
Right.
You're starting from a better place where you have the ability to kind of deal with those things that come up and not, have it just sort of tear your whole world apart.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think everyone has their own journey in this space. Like we all have areas that we excel at, and the areas that like ping every insecurity and
Yeah.
we send us on a spiral. And I think I think that's it. It's like learning how to be aware of it and learning how to work on it. Like it's not a destination, it's a journey. And so giving yourself that grace, telling yourself that you are enough, but also having people who can tell you that, and it like comes from a place of sincerity, because it's very easy to hear it, but it's like to hear it, but then to truly accept it. And I think you and I have talked about this before, where when we worked together, you used to say all the time, like, I appreciate you. I appreciate you. And I never once felt like you didn't appreciate me. But like hearing the words sometimes just felt like hollow, or felt like, um, not because that was what you meant for it, but it was just like in those moments, you genuinely mean it. And I just like feel overwhelmed or feel like
Yeah.
I'm like, and so like when I leave for the day and I'm like, but Jen did say this, and I know Jen and I trust Jen. And so like gives you that soft place to land. And it was definitely not a place of like sit and stay here, but it was like that sincerity that I knew that you appreciated me and the effort that I was like making.
Yeah, absolutely. And the thing is, like all of these tools, whether it's, going to therapy, whether it's affirmations, whether it's, understanding, like from a self-awareness standpoint, when you're in, amygdala hijack or some other mental place where you just need to put something away and think about it later. It doesn't, to your point, mean that you're never going to deal with those things again. They're just a part of life, but it's more, changing that power balance, so you're putting
Yeah.
yourself in a position to maybe have control over the outcome, versus you're along for the ride and your emotions and your anxiety thoughts and all those things are really the what everybody else is in control of your experience. So that anything they say or do could take you on a ride, even
Yeah.
if they didn't intend that,
Yeah.
versus you putting yourself in the driver's seat and getting to be a little more in control of your destiny. And, me, I'm a big fan of being in control of my situation.
You? What?
So I'm really motivated to learn how to put myself in the driver's seat versus allowing myself to be at the mercy of, all of the things externally that can
Yeah.
happen. But I do think it's like a constant something you have to make space and time for. And what you need today could be very different than what you need, tomorrow or a year from now.
Yep.
But just kind of constantly making space in your life to be thoughtful about that, so that you can, give yourself what it is that you're needing. I think is really, really important.
Yeah. So like the big things I'm walking away from this conversation, gotta see Gilmore Girls.
Gotta see Gilmore Girls. It's good for the self-care.
Self-care is very important, and you need to prioritize it.
Yes.
Put some affirmations in place so that you can set yourself up for success, but also like have that soft place to land throughout the day when you need it. And then balance and be kind to yourself, because
Yeah, and the other one is like, it's okay to rely on your inner circle to help you with those things when you're not in a place to do it for yourself.
Yep, agreed. Okay, so let's wrap up by asking folks, what affirmations do you have? Share what affirmations you have throughout the day.
I love that. Awesome. Well, thanks for
right.
tuning in to Chris and Jen in the morning. It's always morning somewhere.
That's right. All right. Talk to y'all later.
Bye.